was kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Right on. Right on. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. We are so glad that you are joining us this morning here at Crossroads Church. If you are able to, I would love to invite you to stand. We're going to spend some time singing together.
awesome? How lucky are we to have this music ministry? What amazing musicians we've got. So, good morning and welcome to Crossroads. Just go ahead and stay standing for a moment. I just want to offer you a quick welcome. Whether you're here in the room or joining us online or even catching us later on demand, we would just want to tell you how happy we are to have you here with us today. I'm Nicole, and I'm going to be your host for the morning. If today is your first time joining us, we want to give you a very special welcome. And if you're in the room and you're a student in middle or high school, our Sunday student gathering is happening right now out in the Student Center, so please feel free to go join them if you'd like. This morning we're going to have some more music and teaching, and we're continuing our series, The Winner Circle, with Pastor Dennis Anderson this morning, who's going to be sharing with us. But first, we're going to enter into a time of prayer. So if you're in the room, Shelley and Gary are going to be here on the right and left side of the room, ready to pray for you. And if you're online or even on demand, you can text the word prayer to 970-500-0970, and someone will pray with you. On our online campus, you can click the live prayer button, and our online host will pray with you right now. You can always write prayer requests on the back of your Connect card, and every week our prayer team does receive those and they pray throughout the week. So let's just continue this morning right now with some music and prayer.
rushing wind, would you breathe within my heart? Through the raging storm, would you hold me in your arms? 'Cause I need you. How I need you. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer to your heart. To your heart. Through the wind and rain, I can hear you call my name. And when the nights get rough, I will still sing out your praise. 'Cause I need you. How I need you. I need you. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs. It's burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer to your heart. Your heart. Your heart. Closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything, closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything, closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer to your heart. Your heart. Your heart. I just want to be so close to your heart. Your heart. Your heart. Let's pray.
Lord, that's why we're here, because there's something in us. Maybe it's on the surface, maybe it's deep down, that knows of our need for you, for your presence in our lives, for your love, for your care, for your support, your encouragement, the power that you give us, the strength that you give us, especially in those moments when we wonder if we can go on. So Jesus, thank you that we get to be together today and experience all of this. In your name I pray, amen. Amen. You can have a seat. Well, I'll add my welcome to Nichols from earlier. Hey, we know this sound, right? Where do we hear this sound? We hear it at stores, right? King Soopers, Walmart, etc. Move on over here so we get Olga in the light here. There we go. And we know that it's Christmas season when we start to hear that bell, isn't it? And so we've invited Olga Duval, who's the director of the Salvation Army, who is, they sponsor the whole bell ringing thing in Loveland. And we are doing the bell ring. We did it last year, and we're going to do it again this year. But we thought, let's have Olga come and just give us a little more information about the Salvation Army. We know, typically, we know that you feed people. But I know that you all do so much more. So what are some of the things that the Salvation Army does in our community?
Thank you for your support. And only with your support, the Salvation Army in Loveland can focus on providing emergency assistance to our neighbors in the community. This assistance includes emergency shelter and respite medical shelter for people experiencing homelessness, rent assistance and deposit assistance to help people with housing, food, clothing, hygiene supplies, seasonal assistance like Christmas gifts for children, Thanksgiving turkeys and food baskets, summer camps for youth, school supplies, and the list goes on.
Whoa. Did you know that? Do you know that Salvation Army did all of that? Well, thank you. Thank you. And the bell ringing thing is a big part of your funding during the year, isn't it?
Exactly. That's where our funding comes from those red kettles. Every penny and every dollar that we receive on those red kettles stay here locally in Loveland and helps us to serve our neighbors, people in need.
And how many locations do you have just in Loveland? I know Fort Collins is separate, but in Loveland alone, how many locations?
We have 10 store locations all over Loveland and one in Berthoud.
There you go. And Debbie Matthews, she's heading up our bell ringing along with the Wabeeks who are sitting right there, our bell ringing initiative here at Crossroads. And so, Debbie, what's involved with bell ringing?
Well, this year, we're going to do the same thing that we did last year. We're going to go join the Salvation Army and partner with them over at the Walmart on 65th Street.
So the one right up here on the hill.
Northeast of us here, and we will be there from November 18th, this Friday, it's already here, through Christmas Eve, December 24th.
And last year, we partnered, and we did this last year, right? And what was the impact of all of that bell ringing last year? Yeah.
Okay. So last year, we actually had 70 volunteers, I believe, that provided a combined total of 288 bell ringing hours, which I think we ended up raising over $19,000 for our total of $124,000 in the Loveland community. So
yeah, that's
amazing.
Awesome. How many of you did bell ringing last year? How many of you were standing out there? That was a great experience, wasn't it? I mean, especially for those of us who's never done it before. And it's really fun, and so you're going to get a chance to do it this year. But Olga, I know that Salvation Army really stretches the money. I mean, you get a lot out of you squeeze a lot out of it. So what's the impact?
So we have been using this money that we collected, you helped us collect in the red kettles last Christmas. And so far, in the first 10 months that we've seen in this year, the Salvation Army has provided the services to over 30,000 people just here in Loveland and Berthoud. And
yeah.
We have provided over 1,800 nights of shelter for people experiencing homelessness, lots of food baskets, rent assistance for people to keep their homes. But the biggest thing, that Salvation Army can stretch those dollars that we get in the red kettles. So for example, if you ring for 2 hours, that helps to provide food for a family for the whole month. Or if you ring for 4 hours, that can generate enough donations in the red kettle to keep a whole family housed for the whole month.
Ooh, that's stretching a dollar, isn't it? A good investment of 2 hours or 4 hours. So Debbie, how do people get involved?
Sure, Dennis. So this year we're making it very simple. You just go to the link on the Crossroads website. It's hooked directly to their link to sign up for a shift. The shifts are 2 hours. They start at 9 a.m. and go to 7 p.m. So you can choose any 2-hour shift, and you need to make sure you choose the Walmart location on 65th. All those locations will show up, but you need to make sure you choose that location, and then also choose north or south door.
Yeah, and you can sign up. Who should do this?
Really, last year was so phenomenal. We had individuals sign up, we had couples sign up, we had families sign up, we had coworkers, friends. I mean, it was such a fun event, and it's such a great way to, I have to say, that was probably the most memorable experience I had last holiday season.
And one of the things we talk about here at Crossroads is the 5 unacceptables. Unacceptable things going on in our community, and homelessness and helping people who just need a little help is one of the unacceptable things in our community. And so this is one of the ways, one of the partnerships that we have. And so I encourage you, take 2 hours of your Christmas, all right? This is a little challenge for everybody. Take at least 2 hours if you've never done it. I did this with my grandkids. I see other people sitting out here who've done it with their grandkids, their families, friends. It's a terrific, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about people, and you realize there are some people who are very, very generous. And so thank you for, Olga, thank you for all that you do. We love doing this with you all. And yeah, the table is right out there. You can see what shifts are open. If a shift is already filled, just pick another one. Yep, they'll help you get signed up even today. So Nicole, I'm going to invite Nicole back up and grab those program notes. And actually, you got some announcements for us.
I do.
So
I do. Thank you guys so much. What a great way to make an impact. I did that last year, and I have to say, we all have to practice generosity in our own lives, but how cool to be able to inspire generosity in other people, and it's just so fun to watch. So I do have a few announcements for you now. You'll definitely want a program, so if you don't have one, please raise your hand and one of our room hosts will bring one to you. Your program is a great weekly resource to help you learn more about who we are at Crossroads and what's going on in the Crossroads network. And inside your program, you have a Connect card. This is for everyone every week, so whether you're a guest or a regular attender, please take some time this morning to fill that out. If you're a regular attender, just check that box that says regular attender, and if you're new here, please go ahead and share as much information as you feel comfortable sharing, and then check that I'm new here box. And then hang on to that Connect card until the end of the service, because you're going to want to add some things as we go along this morning. Also inside your program, you will find an offering envelope, and our hosts will be around later to receive the offering. There are many easy ways to give, so if you would like to drop your Connect card in one of the orange kiosks around the auditorium or put it in the offering basket at the end of the service, that would be great. So one big thing that I want to make everyone aware of is that next weekend is our annual ministry celebration and lunch. It'll be immediately following the service. And this is for all of our regular attenders and our members. We're going to be celebrating the year behind us and looking forward to what's ahead. So members will also have an opportunity to vote on some business items. And kids are welcome, but if you would benefit from some childcare for babies through preschoolers, please just make a note on the back of that Connect card, and Amy Scruggs, who's our children's program director, will be in touch with you. And we do ask that you RSVP for this event. So please, again, just check that box on the back of your Connect card, and we really hope to see everyone there. Okay, finally, this is Veterans Day weekend, and we want to take a moment to acknowledge and honor the veterans here among us. We know you and your families have made a great sacrifice. So if you're a veteran or an active duty service member, or if a member of your family is a veteran or a service member, would you please stand now? And can everybody just stand up and we can offer another round of applause to these people? Thank you so much for your service. Thank you. Okay, so as you take a seat now, if you do have someone who stood up to be recognized, would you please turn and greet them this morning and say thank you? And then go ahead and grab your talk notes. We'll be rolling a short film, and then Dennis will be up here in just a moment. Thank you.
Well, before I get started on my talk, I just wanted to make just a quick comment about, Nicole mentioned the annual ministry celebration and the whole idea of membership. And we're in a season where we're inviting or asking people who call Crossroads their church to just reaffirm, hey, I'm in. I'm a part of this church. I'm supporting the church with my time, talent, and treasure. And it's kind of like joining the team and saying, hey, I'm on the team. So if you're already a current member, on the back of the Connect card, you could just go, hey, continue my membership, I'm on the team. If you're not a member, and in your program also is a card that describes membership and what it means to be a member. And if you're going, you know what, that's where I am. This is my church, and this is what I'd like to do, so you could check that box as well. And if you're unsure that you're a member, you're not really sure, or you have questions about it, like what's this thing about, right after the service, out along the south wall in the atrium is a table, and some of our council members will be there. And so if you have questions or wonder, hey, am I a member? You can just check in with that crew right there. And if you're curious about what membership is all about, come to the annual ministry celebration next weekend. You don't have to be a member to come to that. You could kind of find out a little bit more about the inside and kind of what happens and how we conduct ourselves in our church community. So you're all invited to that. How many of you have a dog or have had a dog? Oh my, there is dog people all over. Well, when we were growing up, we had a number of years ago, we had a Sheltie named Shelby. And we have a picture of her here. And we loved this little Sheltie. In fact, there was one of her most favorite activities happened when we had a snowstorm. And I would go out to shovel off the driveway. And Shelby would get at the edge of the driveway, and she'd wait till I got a shovel full of snow, and I'd throw it off the driveway, and she would run and jump right into the snow and just bark, and then she'd get back over and wait for the next shovel. And I would throw another one a little higher, and she'd jump and leap into that thing. And we just keep doing this until I got the whole driveway cleared. And she was exhilarated. She was exhausted. She looked like the abominable snow dog. But I'll tell you, she never felt as free and as happy as she did in that moment of snow shoveling. You could say she got lost in the moment. When was the last time you were doing something where you just loved so much, it was so freeing, that you got lost in the moment? Like some of you love to cook. Oh man, you got the pans, you got the spices, you got all the utensils, and when you get ready to cook, your kitchen looks like a tornado in a grocery store. And when you get the thing all fixed, sometimes you do something that absolutely makes no sense to me. you post a picture of your food on social media, like this one. Now that's salmon, right? People post Now, if you wanted to post a picture of salmon, I think it should look like this. Now there's a picture of salmon. Or maybe you're making trout almondine, and you want to post a picture of that. Oh. Now here's a picture of a trout, right here. Little fish bragging going on here. But if you love to cook, you can get lost in the freedom of a cooking moment. Some of you play video games. You know what this is like. You skip meals, irritate your roommates, lose sleep because you get lost in the freedom of a moment of video gaming. Some of you you're creative. You're an artist. And you can be painting or composing or writing or drawing, and you look down and you go, 4 hours have just passed. Because there's something so freeing about that activity that you just get lost in the moment. Some of you get lost in moments of football watching or sports watching, right? I mean, you are so engaged. Like I had a friend, true story, long time ago, doesn't live here, who he got so engaged in watching football games, his wife said to him, honey, when you're watching a football game, you get so caught up in that moment. I could come down and sit in that chair right over there, stark naked, and you wouldn't notice. So one day, he's watching a football game, and she comes down au naturel. And do you think he noticed? Well, yeah, he did, actually. Yeah, he did. We're in a series called The Winner's Circle. And on week 1, Ryan talked about our drive to succeed and win. And that the role that service-oriented ambition plays in our path to that winner's circle. And then last week, Rod Kaya talked about how Jesus stood the whole idea of greatness on its head. He said the great person isn't the one who's sitting at the table being served. The great person is the one who's serving those who are sitting at the table. And today I want to talk about freedom. What role does freedom play in this whole idea of serving? And what does freedom look like? Freedom's a big deal in our country, wouldn't you say? And this is your first fill-in note on your program notes if you want to fill it in. We got to vote this week. That's a freedom. Our national anthem, "Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave," or "the land of the free," right? We sing, "Let freedom ring." Our Pledge of Allegiance says, "With liberty and justice for all." And liberty is from the Latin word liber, which means free. Dr. Martin Luther King closed his "I Have a Dream" speech with these words: "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last." Well, has living in the land of the free made us free? We spend enormous amounts of money and brain energy fantasizing about the kind of freedom we would enjoy if only we had more of that. More power, more justice, more sex, more money, more security, more sales, more time off, more health. Sorry, Wendy, I'm going too fast here. You're doing great. More beauty, more family, more youth, more morality, more of our political party in Congress, more prayer, more religious devotion, more quiet, more education, more technology. How many of you have a smartphone? How many of you go, "I need a smarter smartphone because I'm not smart enough to run the one I have, so maybe if I got a smarter one, it would help me." If I had a smarter smartphone, I'd be truly free. Well, have these devices brought us freedom? The average American spends 3 hours and 15 minutes per day on that device. Individuals who own a smartphone pick them up and look at them, guess how many times a day? 58 times on average. Are they freeing us or enslaving us? Well, I think they're enslaving us. Here's the test. Leave your phone home for a full day and ask me how free you feel. Tell me how free you feel. The fantasy of freedom is that if I could just have more of that, I could be truly free. We just did a whole series on the con of having more of that make us free. But it's a big deal in our country. Freedom is a big deal in our religion. Eugene Peterson, pastor and author, writes, being provided with the freedom of religion has not made us free. Coercive cults and enslaving superstitions continue to proliferate. Assembling with people in a church and listening to ringing proclamations of freedom, the one whom the sun sets free is free indeed, has not made us free. When I looked at all the people I was living with as pastor, fairly affluent, well-educated, somewhat knowledgeable about the Christian faith, kind of like us, I realized how unfree they were. They were buying expensive security systems to protect their possessions from burglary. They were overcome with anxieties in the face of rising inflation. They were pessimistic about the prospects for justice and peace in a world bristling with sophisticated weapon systems and nuclear devices. They were living huddled, worried, defensive lives. I wanted to shout, "You don't have to live this way." So gut check time. How free are you today? How many times a week do you get lost in a freedom moment where your soul is shouting or whispering, again, again, higher, higher, and not tied up in a moment of anxiety or stress or worry or pain or regret or conflict where our souls scream out, "Oh God, please, never again." What's freedom anyway? Well, for many people, the definition of freedom is this: I can do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, with whomever I want to do it. In other words, me, myself, and I have complete sovereignty over my life. That's genuine freedom. Okay, we're going to test that idea out a little bit. So, I have this brand new saw. Just bought it this week. It's never been used. Never been used. And so, we're going to check out that. So, the best way to check about the freedom of a saw is to use it, right? So, we start sawing this board and it's just, it's gliding. This saw is, wouldn't you say it's free? It's cutting sharp. It's doing its thing. If its operator could run it better. And man, it's doing what it was designed to do, right? Pretty good. But what if this saw was operating on the definition of freedom I just mentioned? I can do whatever I want to do, with whomever I want to do it, whenever I want to do it. Right? Now, let me ask you, how free is this saw? How free is it? Was that genuine freedom? Sawing on a concrete block? Making sparks? No, that's not a very good definition of freedom, is it? Here's my definition of freedom. Freedom is doing what I was created to do and doing that with everything I have. See, freedom for a saw, if it did whatever it wanted to do, not what it was created to do or designed to do, and it begins to function outside of its design, how free is it really? Like now, how free is this saw to cut this board? Not as free as it was. Not as free as it was. But freedom is a big deal. And so let's look at what's the Bible offer us regarding freedom. Freedom is a big deal in the Old Testament story. Arguably, the central event of the Old Testament is called the Exodus, when the nation of Israel that had been enslaved in Egypt for 400 years was delivered out of slavery, at least for a time, into a land where they had the potential to experience the kind of flourishing life that God had designed for people, for human beings. And on the way out, after God had freed them from slavery, and on their way to where they were going to develop their lives, He gave them the Freedom Charter. We call it the Ten Commandments, where God says, here's the guidelines. You want to live free? Here they are. And we know the story. The nation of Israel couldn't do it, or wouldn't do it, at least not in a world where other powerful nations around them continually wanted more land and more slaves or more power. And time after time, nations and people would be subjugated to a neighboring nation whose functional definition of freedom was what? I could do anything I want, whenever I want, with whomever I want. And as this cycle of power and slavery continued to churn through history, this dream, this vision, this little light turned on of hope in the future, of a coming liberator, a coming Messiah that would once and for all bring the kind of freedom, not just to Israel, but to our planet that we long and hope for. Freedom was a big deal in the Old Testament story. Freedom is a big deal to Jesus. When Jesus went public for the first time, he was in the synagogue or the local church, and it was his turn to read the scriptures, and he called for the scroll of Isaiah. And he rolled way down into the scroll of Isaiah to chapter 60. And this story is found in Luke chapter 4. And this is how it goes. Jesus reads this from the Isaiah scroll. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim, here it is, freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. He rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him, and he began by saying to them, today, this scripture is fulfilled. It's accomplished. It's here. It's arrived in your hearing. And then day after day, week after week, Jesus lived and taught what this genuine freedom looked like. And the freedom charter for Jesus, we find it in the Sermon on the Mount, we call it. It's Matthew chapter 5 through 7. And then after Jesus left the earth, this new lifestyle of freedom, this good news, began to take root and flourish. And then this very devoted, fiery, gifted man came on the scene, Saul, who was renamed Paul after a dramatic, life-transforming experience with the resurrected Jesus. There's no greater spokesperson for genuine freedom in the New Testament than Paul. And freedom is a big deal to Paul. In his writings in the New Testament, he mentions the word free or freedom 28 times. The rest of the New Testament mentions that word 8 times. And Paul's letter to the Galatians could be called Paul's freedom charter. And the bullseye of this whole letter is chapter 5, where Paul lists 3 necessary qualities of freedom. Galatians 5, 1 and 2 says, Christ has set us free to live a free life. So take your stand. Never again let anyone put a harness of slavery on you. I'm emphatic about this. The moment any one of you submits to circumcision or any other rule-keeping system, at that same moment, Christ's hard-won gift of freedom is squandered. Necessity number 1, freedom is an inherent gift that naturally flows from the nature of God as Father, Son, and Spirit. God is the freest reality, the freest essence in the universe. The biblical story begins with God creating a world and the people in it freely, not out of necessity. God didn't have to do it. It was a free act on God's part. And since a free God is at the center of all existence and all creation, and every creature comes out of that free act, freedom and not necessity is always a deeper and more lasting reality. And at the center of this worldview is Jesus, the freest person who ever lived. And living in and around and through the Father and the Son is the Spirit, who is free. As Jesus says, the Spirit is like the wind. It blows where it wills. And when a human being who is created with the divine freedom DNA lives by faith within the design of this reality, we're the freest we can ever be. Freedom is at the heart of what it means to be a human being. And it comes as a gift simply by being born a human being. So it's a gift. Number 2, freedom is also a skill to be developed. Paul says, so take your stand. Never again let anyone put a harness of slavery on you. And later in verse 2, he says, don't squander it. So it's a gift, but there's things to do with it and things not to do with it. It takes some skill. He says, avoiding harnesses of slavery is a skill. And interestingly enough, the harness of slavery that Paul references here is not the political oppression of the Romans, though that abounds. Interesting. Paul says it's the whole system of religious laws that they tried to follow for 2,000 years. And there was a group of people who were trying to get the Galatians to get circumcised, which in their culture was that supreme act of religious devotion. And Paul says, don't do it. Not only don't buy into the Jewish rule-keeping system, but any rule-keeping system, and here's the key, as the basis for your life. Rules are good, but rules are tools. And if we make them a god, they make terrible gods. They make wonderful guides, but terrible gods. And that's Paul's point, that's Jesus' whole point. And here's 4 reasons why. Rules set up systems of comparison, which leads to an insider-outsider. And often there's a judgment that goes with that. Because if I keep the rule, I'm in. And if you don't, you're out, and I'm better than you. Second, rule enforcement systems seldom lead to deeper relationships. Coercion creates distance. And when we have to enforce a rule, right, which we do sometimes, but you ask yourself this, the next time you have to ground your teenager and they slam the door in your face, did your relationship get closer? No, because you needed to enforce the rule. But anytime we lean on enforcement, especially if it's the God, it just creates more and more distance in relationships. Or the next time you get a ticket for going 39 into 35, ask yourself how close you feel to that officer. Another reason, rule-keeping systems have no room for grace. Whenever grace is extended, the rule has to be suspended. And the last one, rule-keeping systems will eventually crush us. Nobody can keep them. You can't, I can't. Many people have a New Year's resolution, which is a rule for the new year. We can't even keep one. I read a book about the whole book of Galatians by Eugene Peterson, and the title of the book was called Traveling Light. And I thought that's such a good description of what Jesus is offering us. And chapter after chapter, he goes into what it means to experience all these freedoms as a gift, but also as a skill to be developed. And I have a list of all the chapters in this book. There's 15 of them. Now just read that list. Free to live, free to change, free to resist, to explore, to think, freedom to fail, to receive, to trust, stand, love, create, give, die. And the first chapter, and it's free for all. It's not a free for all. It's free for everybody. Although there's a free for all component to freedom I'm going to talk about in a minute. And when I read that list, I have 2 thoughts. The first one is, a lot of those are skills that need to be developed. I can grow in these areas. These are freedoms, but they can grow. They can expand. I can learn to love better. I can learn to be more creative. I can learn to change. You can too. It's a skill, it's a freedom, but it's a skill to be developed. And my second thought when I look at that list is if any human being on the planet saw that list, wouldn't they say, that's what I want? Wouldn't any community in the world, except for some insane ones, right? Won't look at that list and go, that's what we want. That's what we're trying to get. That sounds like a pretty good life to me, doesn't it to you? Here's the third necessary quality of freedom. Galatians 5:13. It's absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. Just make sure that you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want to do and destroy your freedom. Whatever you want to do, destroyed the freedom of this. And here's the point. Number 3, freedom is always risky and cannot be domesticated. There are unpredictable energies in it that are of its very essence. If we're going to have the deep excitements of freedom, we also have to live with the risks of it. Paul is very aware of the risks of the kind of freedom he's defending. It's a freedom that can't be withdrawn, it can't be rationed or caged, because to do so would make it unfree. Let me illustrate this. How many of you ever seen a live bear? Yeah, I mean, we like bears, right? They're wonderful animals. They have characteristics we're drawn to. They're furry, they're cuddly, they're lazy, they're big, they're soft, they can be very comical and playful. I mean, why is it that one of the most common stuffed animals is what? The teddy bear. Oh, man. Or we have Build-A-Bear, right? My granddaughter has a mermaid bear. Build-A-Bear. We have one of the favorite stories, bears of all, Winnie the Pooh. And then we have our very own Care Bear team. Here they are. Right? This was their booth at Oktoberfest a couple of weeks ago. This is our disability inclusion team. It's the Care Bears. I'll tell you what, no kid was afraid of them. No kid was afraid of them. But because they're domesticated, those kinds of bears are safe and they're predictable. I have one more picture of a bear. How about this bear? A grizzly bear. The bears are incredibly beautiful, but completely unpredictable. They can be congenial, but they're often violent. And there's only 2 places we find grizzly bears, right? In a cage or in the wild. You don't have them laying around your backyard as a pet. I read a story about a dad and a daughter who went for a hike in a wilderness area in Montana. And if you live in Montana, grizzly bear stories abound. People love to tell grizzly bear stories, but they don't want to be in the story, and they especially don't want to be in the grizzly. And they went on a hike, and they walked in, and they saw a grizzly bear just tearing the earth apart, looking for bulbs to eat and bugs and grubs and all of that. And their awe meter just spiked because there was something they were drawn to about that bear, right? I mean, whoa, look at that bear. But their fear meter also spiked at the same time because while they wanted to see the bear, they didn't want the bear to see them. And so they kind of snuck away, and they got about a mile down the road, and his daughter said to her dad, "Hey, Dad, I had 2 prayers answered today. 1, I got to see a grizzly bear. 2, the grizzly didn't see me." And here's the thing about wild animals. You can train them, but you cannot tame them. And it's the same way with freedom. We can train freedom, but we cannot tame it, because if we tame it, it is unfree. And that's at the very center of the universe. It's the very center of the nature of God. He put that in us. It can be guided, it can be trained, but if you clamp down on it, if you cage it, it's not free. Love is the same way. Albert Camus, philosopher, in his speech upon receiving the Nobel Prize, said this about freedom. Liberty, freedom, is dangerous, as hard to get along with as it is exciting. Paul says you were called to freedom. Wild, risky freedom. But it's dangerous because it can quickly become self-serving if it's not trained. Galatians 5:14, he says, "For everything we know about God's word is summed up in a single sentence. Love others as you love yourself." That's an act of true freedom. If you bite and ravage each other, watch out. In no time at all, you will be annihilating each other. And where will your precious freedom be then? And this is easy to do, isn't it? Just to use our freedom to bite. To bite. At least I'm doing my share around here. Chomp. Your sister would never do that. Chomp. You voted for... I know what some of you are thinking. What's wrong with you? Bite. And when we bite, the natural reaction is what? bite back. That's what Paul says. And if we can't absorb a bite, pretty soon he says you're raging and you're annihilating each other, and where is anyone's freedom then? And here's a verse that brings this whole conversation into crystal clear bullseye focus. Galatians 5:16. Rather, use your freedom to serve one another in love, and that's how freedom grows. Here's how to take this wild, untamable, exhilaratingly high octane of freedom and use it. And this is what we were created for. Don't miss this. The purest expression of freedom is serving others in love. Now, this sounds kind of simple, but when you get a grip on this, it is profound. The purest form of freedom is to use that freedom to serve somebody else in love. As Bishop Robert Barron says, freedom is not so much liberty of choice, but rather the disciplining of desire, training for the skill, so as to make the achievement of the good first possible and then effortless. You see the process there of how freedom grows? We train and get skills of these freedom, and the more we do it, it makes the good possible. And then the more we do it, the more we practice it, pretty soon, doing that just becomes effortless. How many of you learned a second language? Many of you have. And it is a process, isn't it? Right? Because on this end of the spectrum, we learn I have this kind of Spanish. I can count to 10, maybe 20 in Spanish, and I can say hello and what is your name? Do I have freedom in Spanish? No. And I can get to, now, all the way up to the other end of the spectrum, which is fluency. When do you become free in that spectrum where you go, okay, now, early on in the process of learning language, there's a lot of effort, but there comes a moment, there comes a tipping point when the effort pays off and the freedom in that language grows and you begin experiencing that with genuine freedom. And this happens in all kinds of skills, right? Music and cooking and fly fishing and teaching and piloting a plane. And the person I want piloting my plane is the one who is very free. I don't want somebody who's down here, let's see, do I need to put the wheels down? The more we speak and live the language of serving others in love, we will create a thriving, growing culture of freedom. We never are more free than we get lost in moments of loving one another. When we become fluent in the language of serving others out of love, and it becomes this natural thing that we just do. But freedom isn't static. It can grow. Verse 13, it says, the freedom can grow. And grow is a living, organic process. Right? This isn't a machine of freedom. This is a tree. This is a fruit tree of freedom that we're growing. And Paul says, this is how it starts. It's animated and motivated by God's Spirit. We can't do this on our own. It's animated and motivated by God's Spirit. And then in verse 18 it says, and then we choose to be led by the Spirit. So the Spirit's in us. The Spirit is leading us. And then he says, this is the natural outcome. There's fruit. In 5:23 and 24, he says, but the fruit of the Spirit, here it comes, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And then he says this, against such there is no law. There are no rules against these things. What is a fruit? Well, it's two things. It's something to be eaten and enjoyed, right? I have a piece of fruit, I eat it and enjoy it. And if I don't actually eat and enjoy it, what's going to happen to it? It's going to rot. It's going to go bad. But the second thing the fruit is it's a seed, isn't it? I could take that fruit and plant it. And in the process of the organic, natural growth, it's going to come up, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to produce fruit. Serving one another in love, this is Paul's point, is not like dropping a pebble in a pond, where you drop the pebble and it ripples out, and that's it. No lasting impact. Paul says, these are fruits. Enjoy them and plant them. And when we plant these fruits, fruits come up. Because God is the foundational orienting reality, the creator. God is the one who sustains it. God is the one who makes it grow. Have you ever wondered, how many of you have a garden? You take this dead, dry seed that's been in this packet, and it looks dead, and you put it in the ground, and you put a little water on it, and what happens? Magic, right? It just grows. There's mystery in that to me. It's not just a biological process. There is the potential of life in that seed. And the seed dies for it to grow. But fruit is a seed, but it's also something that we can enjoy. And God is the foundational orienting reality. God doesn't just love. God is love. And when we plant this divine love, what comes up? Love, joy, peace, patience. Because that's the fruit of the Spirit. There's no laws. We can't pass laws against this stuff. How many of you would like to pass a law in northern Colorado? There will be no dandelions in my lawn next spring. I think we could get it passed, right? Next spring, what's going to come up in your yard? Because there are certain realities that laws are completely irrelevant. Just as if we passed a law that said my peach tree is going to produce peaches every year. We could pass the law, well, guess what? It functions on a completely different reality. And that's the kind of love Jesus is talking about. That's the kind of freedom that Jesus and Paul and the Old Testament story, it's the kind of freedom that your heart longs for. It's the kind of freedom that would put our communities back together. It's the kind of freedom that we could disagree agreeably instead of disagree disagreeably and just keep disagreeing disagreeably. No law can stop it. Serving one another in love, there's no laws against it. There's no laws that can make it happen. There's no laws against it. And maybe it can get tiring, right? It can get tiring. That's why Paul says in the next chapter, do not let us grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. He's saying you can't go out and plant love, can't go out and plant potatoes, and tonight have potatoes for dinner. Sometimes when you plant love or joy or peace or patience, it takes a long time for it to grow. You go, well, it didn't grow in them. Well, it can grow in you. It can grow in you and me. And so what's God inviting us into today? A couple weeks ago, Barbara and I got to spend a full day with our we have triplet granddaughters. There are 4 in Denver. And we had an unbelievable blast all day long. We played, we read books, we built big, magnificent structures out of magnet tiles. We cuddled, we went for walks. They'd walk under a tree in the park and I'd shake the fall branch and down would come all these golden leaves on them. It's like a snowstorm of gently falling golden maple leaves. We went to 3 parks. It was a long day. Well, we went to this one park where there was this big swing. And the swing was like this wide. And it was like this big kind of short bowl with cables on the side. And first Ivy got in, and I was pushing her on this swing. And she's laughing and laughing. And then Stella comes over and says, Papa, I want on. And so now Stella gets on, and I'm pushing the 2 of them. And Cora comes running over, Papa, I want on. And so Cora gets on, and I'm pushing him, and guess what they're saying? Papa, again, right? Again. And then they were saying, Papa, higher, higher. And I have a picture of them right here. Lost in a moment of freedom. Completely free. But gift, right? Life is a gift. Tuesday was a gift. The swing was a gift. Skill. They got to hang on, right? They're hanging on. Risky? Yeah, they could fall off. I mean, I picture them like going off this thing, right? But do you think they're going stop? No, because that's the experience of freedom. We know it's risky. We know it takes development. We know it's a gift, but we want it so bad. And when we experience those moments, we're never more free than we're free in this moment. And that's true when it comes to swinging. It's true when it comes to loving and serving one another. We're never more free than when we're serving our family in love again and again, higher and higher. And as we practice these, loving each other, and what does it look like in a family? I do the dishes again. I take out the trash when it's not my turn. I extend curfew once in a while. It's freedom in a family. And we want more. And first it starts as a skill, and then as we get at it, it becomes effortless. And it happens in friendships. We cook another meal for that friend. We listen to another conversation with that person who's been hurting for 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, and cannot get out of the funk that they're in. But we, as a friend, higher and higher again and again. And when we go to work and we're around grumpy people, higher, higher, again and again. And our church, oh man, I know some of you, you're weary in serving and doing good. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's fruit to be had. Some of it's green, some of it's not ripe yet, some of it's still in the ground. It's God's business at making it grow. It's our business. Serve one another in love again and again and higher and higher. And the next one is probably the test of genuine freedom. Loving our enemies. Because here's what happens. You have an enemy. Who knows? It could be an enemy for a minute, or it could be an enemy for a week or a month or a lifetime. Where they say something caustic to you. And you have the freedom not to say a caustic remark back. Now that's freedom. When you don't let your enemy dictate to you what your response is going to be, but you, in fact, respond differently. And that's why the cross is so central in all of Paul's conversation in this chapter. He says, because that's what Jesus did on the cross. He absorbed all of that. And he didn't retaliate in kind. He absorbed evil. He absorbed betrayal. He absorbed, and he gave out love and joy and peace and patience and justice and love and grace and relationship. Again and again and higher and higher. At the end of our wonderful day together, we're getting ready to leave on Tuesday night, and Ivy can tell that we're leaving. And she goes, Papa, when are you leaving? And I said, sweetheart, we're getting ready to go in just a minute. And she ran across the room and she grabbed my leg. Papa, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. And I picked her up. I just held her. Now that's the kind of winner circle I want to be in, and I want to stay in. Higher and higher. Again and again. Amen. We're going to do another song, and the ushers are going to come by and collect the offering. It's part of our life together, and you can fill out the Connect card and drop in the offering basket. We're passing it, but let's do this song together.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time, dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars are made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. Once you have spoken, nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky is canvas of your grace. Creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. So will I. Stars are made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you lead it, so will I. If the rocks cry out inside it, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls shy, sing again 100 million God of salvation, you chase down my heart through all of my failure and pride. The hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave so alive. I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in the work of art called love. You gladly chose surrender so alive. I can see your heart in a million different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. You gave your life to love them so alive, like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Would you stand? We'll get a blessing and I'll get you out of here. If you're new to Crossroads, this is a practice we do at the end of the service to send you out with a blessing, which is to fill you with the potency for life. And if you like and want to, you can raise your hands as a symbol of, I am open to receiving this blessing. So as you leave this place, may you know the closeness of God's Spirit, who will empower you to breathe in the rarefied, wild air of freedom. May you be grateful for the gift of freedom and grow in the skills of freedom. And every day this week, may you plant seeds of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and self-control. And enjoy these same fruits as they ripen in our families, in our community, and in our world again and again, higher and higher. Amen. See y'all.